Many couples who have been together for decades reach a point in their 60s or beyond where the once effortless touches, the hand holding, the arm draped around a shoulder, the casual brush of fingers across the back, start to fade without anyone even noticing when it happened, and while it might seem like a natural shift that comes with age, the truth is that physical touch is one of the most powerful and essential components of intimacy and emotional connection at any stage of life, especially later years, yet many couples silently drift away from it for reasons they've never openly discussed. This loss isn't always about a lack of love but often stems from a combination of physical changes, emotional habits, and even societal misconceptions about affection in older age. And what's more surprising is that it can happen so gradually that neither partner consciously realizes how much they've given up something that once made their bond so strong. And if we were to look deeper, we'd find several intertwined causes, starting with physical discomfort or health issues that subtly discourage touch. Perhaps arthritis makes holding hands uncomfortable, a past surgery makes hugging feel awkward, or skin changes make someone self-conscious. Small things that build invisible walls over time. Then there's the psychological element, where couples fall into a comfortable but distant rhythm, replacing physical affection with shared routines and conversations that, while still warm, lack the physical reinforcement that the human brain is hardwired to crave for emotional security. Science has shown that touch stimulates the release of oxytocin, the so-called love hormone, which not only strengthens emotional bonds but also lowers stress, reduces blood pressure, and even boosts immune function, meaning that when touch fades from a relationship, the effects go beyond emotional disconnection and can actually impact both partners' health. In older couples, there's also the factor of changing body image, where one or both partners feel less physically attractive or desirable, leading to a withdrawal from touch because they fear rejection or embarrassment. Ironically, this withdrawal often makes the other partner feel unwanted, perpetuating a cycle of distance. Cultural influences also play a role, as society tends to portray physical affection and sexual touch as the domain of the young, subtly reinforcing the idea that seniors shouldn't or don't engage in intimate gestures, which can subconsciously influence couples to avoid them. Another subtle contributor is the transition into caregiving roles. When one partner experiences declining health, touch may start to feel more functional or clinical, like helping with dressing or mobility, rather than romantic or tender, and this shift, if left unchecked, can cause affection to feel like a lost chapter rather than an ongoing part of the relationship. Financial stress, family dynamics, and even years of unresolved small conflicts can also erode the desire for closeness because touch often requires emotional safety to feel natural. Yet, despite all these challenges, the remarkable truth is that the ability to reignite physical connection doesn't diminish with age. In fact, older couples have a unique advantage because they know each other's histories, quirks, and comfort zones better than anyone else. And even a single conscious effort to reintroduce small, non-demanding touches into daily life can start to rebuild the physical bond. It begins not with grand gestures but with intentionality. Choosing to let your hand linger on your partner's arm during a conversation, sitting side by side on the couch rather than opposite chairs, or giving a good morning kiss that lasts 2 seconds longer than usual. These micro moments of connection, while seemingly trivial, have a compounding effect on both the brain and the heart, creating a feedback loop where affection leads to greater emotional closeness, which in turn makes more affection feel natural. The brain, regardless of age, still responds to positive touch by reinforcing trust and safety, and in long-term relationships, those neural pathways can be reignited even after years of minimal use, which is why so many couples who make a deliberate effort to reintroduce touch often report feeling like newlyweds again. Not because their bodies have reverted to their 20s, but because their emotional connection is restored to its most vibrant form. Understanding why couples stop touching is the first and most crucial step because it allows both partners to see the issue not as a sign of failure or incompatibility but as a common and reversible phase in long-term relationships. And when you view it this way, the idea of reigniting the flame shifts from an intimidating challenge to an exciting and deeply rewarding journey, one that can bring unexpected joy, tenderness, and even health benefits well into your later years. setting the stage for exploring the practical, proven techniques that make this renewal possible. As the years pass, it's not just physical changes that can cause couples to drift apart in their physical connection. Emotional shifts play an equally powerful role, and these often go unnoticed until the absence of touch becomes a silent normality, something both partners have subconsciously accepted without even realizing what's been lost. Yet deep inside, both may still long for the warmth of physical closeness, even if they have forgotten how to initiate it or feel unsure if it will be welcomed, because over time small emotional injuries can accumulate, like disagreements that were never fully resolved, unspoken resentments, or changes in personality and habits that make one partner feel less understood or valued. And when these little wounds aren't healed, they can subtly create barriers to touch, as if the body senses the emotional gap and instinctively pulls back. So one of the most important steps to reigniting the flame is addressing the emotional climate in the relationship first, which might sound unrelated to physical intimacy, but in reality it is deeply connected because for many, especially as they age, touch is not just about desire, it's about trust, safety, and emotional connection, and if a partner doesn't feel emotionally safe, they won't naturally reach for your hand, lean in for a hug, or initiate any kind of tender contact. So the first strategy is to consciously work on rebuilding that trust by doing small daily gestures that signal care. Like making their favorite tea without being asked, leaving a kind note in an unexpected place, or simply listening with full attention when they speak, without rushing to respond or fix their problem. And over time, these gestures begin to reopen emotional doors, making physical touch feel less risky and more natural. Then there's the role of body image. Many men and women over 60 struggle with how they feel about their appearance. Whether it's wrinkles, gray hair, weight changes, or surgical scars. And when one partner feels unattractive, they often withdraw physically out of fear of rejection or embarrassment, which can be heartbreaking because their partner might still find them deeply attractive but is unaware of the insecurities holding them back. So one very effective method is to openly give compliments, not just on appearance, but on qualities that make the person feel desired, such as saying, "I love the way you make me laugh," or "I still find your eyes so beautiful," because this reinforces their worth in your eyes and slowly dismantles the internal walls they've built. Another important factor is the change in daily routines. Retirement, health challenges, or even simply spending too much time together in the same space can make the relationship feel more like roommates than lovers. So shaking up the routine by introducing novelty, like taking a short trip, trying a dance class, or cooking a meal together in a playful way, can rekindle the spark because novelty stimulates the brain's reward system and reminds the couple of the excitement they once shared. And while some might think intimacy must always be planned to fit medical schedules or energy levels, spontaneity still has its place, even if it's in small moments like leaning in for a slow kiss while cooking dinner or touching your partner's back gently as you pass them in the hallway. Because these micro moments of touch create an unconscious momentum that builds over time, leading to more frequent and deeper physical connection. And finally, communication about touch itself is often avoided due to embarrassment, yet having an honest conversation about what feels good now, because preferences can change with age, can remove uncertainty and create a safe space where both partners feel free to express what they need. So by combining emotional repair, body confidence boosting, breaking routine monotony, introducing micro moments of spontaneous touch, and open communication about desires, couples over 60 can not only reignite the flame but make it burn with a deeper, more meaningful warmth than they ever experienced before, because this time, it's built not just on youthful passion, but on decades of shared life and an understanding that touch is not a luxury in love, it is its lifeline. When couples over 60 have already started making small efforts to restore physical intimacy, the next phase is sustaining and deepening those moments so that they feel natural again, rather than awkward or forced. Because the truth is, you can't reignite the flame with one spark, you have to keep feeding it with the right kind of fuel, and that fuel is a mix of emotional openness, gentle persistence, and a willingness to explore without rushing toward the kind of intimacy you might have expected decades ago, instead allowing touch to be a conversation in itself where each gesture says, "I'm here with you." rather than, I'm trying to get somewhere fast. At this stage, the little things matter tremendously. The morning squeeze of the hand when you pass each other in the kitchen, the way you put a blanket over your partner when they fall asleep in the chair, the way you brush a strand of hair from their face, not because these are dramatic gestures, but because they slowly rewire your shared experience to associate touch with warmth, safety, and familiarity again, rather than with obligation, pressure, or uncertainty. This is also the point where many couples discover that it's not always the quantity of physical contact that reignites desire, but the quality of it, meaning that if every touch feels intentional and tuned into the other person's comfort, it can carry far more emotional weight than dozens of distracted, mechanical touches that don't really land. In practical terms, one of the most effective ways to nurture this quality is through longer, unhurried periods of physical closeness without the expectation of sex. Perhaps lying in bed together after waking up and just holding each other for 10 or 15 minutes. Or sitting together on the couch with your legs touching while you read or watch something quietly. Letting the connection become part of your everyday background rather than something reserved only for special occasions. Over time, these small, consistent connections help melt away the stiffness or hesitation that can build up after years of reduced contact. Because they're not framed as rare or risky, they're simply part of how you relate to each other now, which reduces anxiety and opens the door for more spontaneous touches to feel normal again. Another essential part of this middle stage is learning to communicate about touch without making it a tense conversation, because many couples avoid talking about it out of fear that it will lead to conflict, embarrassment, or rejection, but the truth is that silence can be far more damaging in the long run. For example, saying something as simple as, "I like it when you hold my hand," or "It feels nice when you rub my shoulders," can go a long way toward guiding your partner toward what feels good without making it a criticism of what they're not doing. Equally important is to listen for and respect your partner's cues, both verbal and nonverbal, because when touch feels mutual and safe, it encourages more of it, whereas ignoring discomfort, however subtle, can make the other person retreat again. This is especially true for couples over 60 because physical limitations, arthritis, joint pain, or skin sensitivity can mean that certain touches simply aren't comfortable anymore, and learning to adapt together, whether that means using softer pressure, changing positions, or focusing on different areas of the body, can help you maintain physical closeness without causing strain. One surprisingly powerful way to deepen connection in this stage is to intentionally slow down during moments of touch. For example, instead of rushing through a hug, hold it for a few extra breaths and notice how the other person's body softens as they relax into you. Or when you stroke your partner's back, take your time rather than just patting them quickly, because the slower the gesture, the more it communicates presence and attentiveness. At the same time, it's worth acknowledging that even with the best intentions, there can be emotional barriers to sustaining this renewed closeness, such as old resentments, unresolved arguments, or lingering feelings of being unappreciated, that can subtly block the desire to touch or be touched. Addressing these doesn't mean dredging up every fight from the past, but it does mean creating a habit of speaking up sooner when something bothers you, so that small issues don't pile up into walls between you. Many couples over 60 find that working on emotional repair alongside physical reconnection can feel almost like starting fresh. Because when you remove the weight of old tension, the body naturally becomes more open to receiving affection without defensiveness. This can be as simple as making time each week to check in about how you're both feeling, not just in terms of health or daily events, but in terms of your connection to each other. Asking, "How are we doing?" and really listening to the answer can open up conversations that bring you closer on every level. One practical tip here is to create rituals of touch that are anchored to moments you already share every day, so they don't feel like extra work. For example, always kissing each other on the cheek when you say good morning or good night, holding hands during evening walks, or even rubbing lotion into each other's hands before bed, which can be particularly soothing for older skin, are ways of weaving touch into your life without making it a big, intimidating event. These rituals not only keep physical contact alive, they also give you both something to look forward to, a dependable moment of connection that becomes almost sacred in its consistency. Over time, these seemingly small acts become the scaffolding on which deeper intimacy can be rebuilt, because they create a sense of safety and predictability around touch that counteracts any awkwardness you might have felt at the start of this process. Finally, remember that sustaining physical intimacy after 60 isn't about competing with your younger selves or chasing a certain kind of passion you had decades ago. It's about embracing the intimacy that's possible now, in the bodies and lives you currently have. This stage is less about explosive bursts of passion and more about a steady glow of connection that can be just as satisfying, if not more so, because it's rooted in shared history, mutual care, and a deeper understanding of each other's needs. When you approach it with patience, humor, and curiosity, the process of rebuilding and sustaining touch can actually become one of the most rewarding adventures you've ever shared, precisely because it's not just about physical closeness, it's about learning how to love and be loved in the fullest sense, all over again. When you start to see touch as not just a romantic act but as a shared language between you and your partner, it begins to take on a new level of importance, and after 60, this language becomes even more powerful because it's no longer about performance or impressing anyone, it's about connection, safety, and being truly seen, yet many couples still shy away from it because of years of accumulated emotional walls. And this is where a simple yet intentional change can make a lifetime of difference. Instead of waiting for big moments or romantic setups, incorporate tiny, frequent touches into your everyday life. A brush of the arm while passing in the hallway, a gentle rub on the back as you make tea together, a hand resting on their knee while sitting on the couch, and though these seem small, they send repeated signals to the brain that we are close, we are safe, we are connected, slowly melting away the coldness that distance can create over decades, and you'll find that this often leads to more emotional openness, more shared laughter, and yes, even more physical intimacy without the pressure of forcing it. In fact, research on long-term couples shows that when physical touch is present even in non-sexual ways, overall relationship satisfaction scores rise dramatically because touch is one of the few forms of communication that bypasses words and goes straight to the nervous system, lowering stress hormones like cortisol and increasing oxytocin, the so-called bonding hormone, which is why many therapists encourage touch rituals, such as holding hands for 30 seconds every morning before getting out of bed or hugging for a full 20 seconds at least once a day, because these moments train your body to expect connection and make it easier to maintain closeness over time. And you might be surprised that when touch becomes normal again, the flame that felt like it had gone out suddenly feels like embers ready to burst into warmth, and you may rediscover the thrill of leaning in to kiss without overthinking or of feeling your partner's hand find yours instinctively in public, which reignites not just your physical life but your entire sense of partnership. The truth is, at this stage of life, you don't need grand romantic gestures to feel alive together, you need presence, consistency, and an openness to experiment with new forms of touch. Whether that's slow dancing in the living room to an old favorite song, giving each other foot massages while watching TV, or even taking a warm bath together just to let your skin remember each other's texture. And while it might feel awkward at first if you've gone months or years without frequent contact, it's important to push through the initial discomfort because awkwardness is just a sign that your body and brain are adjusting to a healthier, more connected state. So start today, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but now. Even if it's as small as placing your hand gently on your partner's cheek when you say goodnight, because these tiny moments compound into a deeply fulfilling intimacy that no amount of expensive vacations or fancy gifts could replace. And in time, you may find that touch becomes as natural and essential as breathing, a quiet yet powerful reminder every single day that love is not something you had in the past but something you continue to build, moment by moment, fingertip to fingertip, heartbeat to heartbeat, until the very last chapter of your shared story